So why don't we shift over to, and we can continue, by the way, this is pretty informal. It's not like we're trying to stick to one topic and then you're not allowed to talk about it again. We'll continue to, I think, kind of chew on the idea wall topics here. But the other question, which I think is a very important one at the end of a two-day meeting, over with our little gap in between, is where do we go from here? And I always like to walk away from meetings having discussed all of the different aspects, but kind of have marching orders as I'm heading out. So we have Andrew and Erika. And by the way, for you all here and people listening in, watching, we're being informal about names and titles because you have this information on the website or here in the program. So I'm not reading out bios. But Erika, do you want to jump in about this question about where do we go from here? And you represent some of these associations that have been, or one of them anyway, that have been discussed. And you mentioned to me before we came up here that sometimes people think associations are the solution. And maybe you can help us with whether that's correct or not.
Sure, yeah, I can address that during my comments. I think first I'd like to say is it's easy at a meeting like this to get really focused at the deficits and where we're not doing well and all the places that we're falling short on. And in the discussion of cultural change, I really see it from a different perspective than I think a number in the room. I see a lot of cultural change that's happened already, and that's the hardest kind of change. I see in the time that I've been communicating that the fact that we know now that there don't appear to be negative intrinsic pressures on scientists about communicating, that's huge, because a decade ago it was all about how scientists would be punished if they got out and communicated. So, I think that sometimes it's really easy to look at the mountain that we still need to climb, but we need to focus on all of those hills that we've already gone over, all those little wins that we've had. And I think that I see a lot of cultural change that's gone on already. I'm not saying that there isn't a heaping helping that we still need to do, but there has been a lot. And I think that the fact that we can have meetings, that we come together like this, that we have meetings like this, that in the first day we can have the number of scientists in front of us talking about their experiences is quite profound. And I think we shouldn't forget that. It gives us the opportunity now to say, how do we do it smarter? How do we do it better? Instead of, how do we do it? Can we do it? Who would do it? So I think we're really, that's a really big plus that we shouldn't lose sight of as we look around. And reflecting on the funding conversation, funding's tight all over. It's not like we're some sort of exception to the special rule that people are picking on. And I think that requires us to be smarter. And I know when I looked at the board over there, and I think this maybe got encompassed under the boundary organization one, which is why I voted, that there was a lot of items over there about doing research and evaluation and sharing the results and talking to each other in better ways, because we do have a tendency in this field to reinvent the wheel over and over again, and to think that what we're doing, and always to have the it's not invented here kind of thing. It's like I need my own special thing because I'm, instead of kind of looking at best practices. And so I see in the divide there's of course the divide between just organizations actually communicating with each other. But in the practitioner research divide, it's funny to me for a group that's always talking about needing to have public engagement of science in the deficit model, that the science communication researchers often speak in the same way. If only the science practitioners would read our stuff and do what we tell them to do, then they do it better. That's the same model we're talking about in science. It's got to be a dialogue between those two groups. The practitioners and the researchers need to communicate. Practitioners need to say, this is what we need, this is what we're trying to do. The researchers, let me help you formulate research questions around that. So it isn't a matter of just, if only practitioners would read this stuff, it would kind of improve the whole approach. So I just throw that out there. In terms of the role of associations, there are a number of associations in the room, and I can certainly speak from my personal perspective on this. Associations do play a critical role. We're a professional organization that's charged with the professional development. That's one of our roles, is to provide professional development for our members. I know that my society feels that the communication is very important, and I know that there's a number of other representatives here that wouldn't be from other societies that wouldn't be here if they didn't think it was important. That being said,